Okay, let's get ready for our first speaker. He is a filmmaker and a writer with a difference. He's very quirky, very witty, and he's got a very unusual take on fake news. And he's been using that as a way of commenting on some of the challenges facing the world and the media today. He'll tell you a bit more, but just a few of his stunts. He has managed to get a garden shed in London listed as one of the top restaurant in London on TripAdvisor. He's managed to send doppelgangers of himself to appear on TV shows, and he recently managed to swindle his way into Fashion Week in Paris. You might know him from his work also for The Guardian, for Vice. He's also got a book coming out shortly. Please give a very warm welcome. I think he's going to wander up down the red carpet, Oobah Butler.
How's it going? Everyone on the way in, just before I start, saw the photo of me like this, right? That photo will never cease to be funny. It's very, very good. But anyway, less of that. Yeah, my name is Oobah Butler, and I'm obsessed with TripAdvisor. It all began around sort of 5 years ago when I started out as a writer, or I decided I wanted to be a writer. I had no formal qualifications or any reason to think that I could be a writer. So I started just by writing for free for music websites, reviewing albums, that kind of thing. And one of the first paid jobs that I got was writing fake reviews for restaurants on TripAdvisor. So, for example, a restaurant owner would pop up in my inbox and say, "Can you review my restaurant?" And I would say, "Yeah, went to this Greek place in Malmo. It was delicious. The feta cheese to die for." Boom. Done. Money. But yeah, it sounds simple, but really it was quite fascinating to me because in a previous life I'd worked in restaurants like I think most people do, or behind bars, things like that. And TripAdvisor's taken very seriously in those contexts. So to see that, TripAdvisor might not be completely legitimate was fascinating to me. Because I remember when my managers, if we got a 1-star review, would be like, "What the hell is going on?" Turns out it might not be as serious as we think. So I started thinking about how much of TripAdvisor is legitimate, how much of it is real, how much of it can we trust. Okay, so the reviews. Okay, so I know some of those are false because I'm responsible for them. The reviewers, yeah, it's really not hard to have multiple accounts on TripAdvisor at all. So those could be false. But one thing that I came back to and thought, okay, this is totally legitimate, this is totally great, is the restaurants. You can't fake the existence of a restaurant. So I left it there, and over the next few years, my career became a little bit more eccentric, one might say. I started doing these things that sit somewhere between social experiments and pranks, mainly for Vice. And in April 2017, I kind of came back to this. I was writing another piece about TripAdvisor. And I came back to this idea and just thought, God, back to this restaurant thing. What do you actually need to get a restaurant verified on TripAdvisor? What do you need? What do you need to provide? So I started going through this process of trying to get a restaurant on TripAdvisor. And it turns out it's a lot more simple than you might think. You just need a name. So I came up with one, the Shed at Dulwich, because at the time I lived in a shed in southeast London, in a suburb of London. You need an address. I just put the name of my road. I didn't even put a door number. You need a mobile or a phone number. So I bought one of those from the local supermarket. Boom, got one of them. And you need a website. So I spent the afternoon looking at fancy restaurants' websites and tried to make my own, and in a couple of hours' time, I had this. www.theshedatdulwich.com. the logo, I designed that on Microsoft Paint. The tagline, all you're allowed to know about London's best kept secret. Again, I came up with that one, I think that's all right. The menu, so my idea for the menu, the concept behind the whole restaurant, was that the Shed at Dulwich, you don't order meals, you order moods. So you go in and you say, hey, can I have comfort? And they serve you soup in an Egyptian cotton bowl, which, you know, under any analysis, you'd think, yeah, cotton wouldn't hold soup, would it? But no one seemed to care. They wanted to believe it, so we went with that. So yeah, I put this all together in an afternoon, including the food photos, and I didn't nick those from Google Images or anything. I did those myself, and I'm no gourmet chef, but I think they're pretty delicious. You'd eat that, wouldn't you? You'd eat that. If you wanted to die, you'd eat that. Yeah. And then for those people with a sweet tooth, you know, the sweet tooth, we've got something on the menu for you too, which also might kill you if you ate it. And you guys will get the idea here. This isn't quite what it looks like. It's my foot. So, I sent all this off. It was April 2017. 3 weeks later, this happens. We're officially verified as a restaurant on TripAdvisor. Didn't expect that. So I decide, you know, what's the next step? What shall I do now? Okay, I want to get some reviews for my fake restaurant. So I decide to contact all of my family and friends and ask them if they can review it for me. And for them to do that, because apparently not everybody is as full as shit as I am, I had to teach them how to review the Shed at Dulwich and pretend they'd been there. So I sent them a kind of list of things that they should mention in their review, their fake review of the Shed at Dulwich. Every review should mention how, 1, the food is homely. 2, you eat outside. 3, it's an appointment-only restaurant, because people can't show up here, because they would come and see that it was just me sat in my pants eating toast. And 4, the most important, 4, it has Michelin quality, but a farmyard feel to it. And the last one, which is the most important, which is, it's impossible to get a table. Absolutely impossible to get a table. Which is the most truthful thing about this experiment thus far. So, I send out this kind of content, this guide, and how people can review the restaurant, send it out to my family and friends, and within 6 weeks, we're up to number 1,456 in the whole of London. That's how quickly it goes, which is kind of interesting to me, but not that interesting. You know, it's kind of still abstract. It's online. There's a barrier there for me still. And then one day, the phone rings. And it's not my phone. It's the phone that I bought for the Shed at Dulwich. And on the other end of that phone is an actual human trying to book a table at my non-existent restaurant. So I answer it. And the call goes something like this. Oh, hello there. I know how awfully busy you are, but I love farmyard food with a Michelin star quality. Could I please have an appointment this Friday? And the whole call was completely fascinating to me because this lady was talking to me in the terms of my mythology. All this stuff that I'd told my family and friends to talk about in the fake reviews, she had taken as gospel and was spouting back to me. So I panicked and I said, I'm sorry, we're fully booked for the next 6 weeks, and put the phone down. But that kind of made me think, God, I wonder if anybody else is trying to book a table here. So I got access to the email I'd made for the Shed at Dulwich because I'd forgotten the password, did a password reset thing, theshed@dulwich.com, got into there, and what was waiting for me was a brave new world of people crawling all over each other to get a table at my non-existent restaurant. Just a few examples of some emails here. Somebody leveraging the fact that their girlfriend works at a children's hospital to guilt trip me into giving them a table. Another one, a TV network executive from Universal Pictures trying to leverage their job in order to get a table. Another one, here's a local. Hi, I never realized you were there on Freeham Road, just 2 blocks from us. Any chance you have room for 2 on the 28th of September for my wife's birthday? This will be our first time out alone since having our first child. A little bit guilty with that one. But you can ignore emails, can't you? You can ignore them, we all do it. You can't, however, ignore phone calls. And by the end of July, I was getting sort of 5 calls a day to the shed, which was just slowly going up and up and up. And every call that I answered, I would just say, I'm sorry, we're fully booked, and put the phone down. Didn't matter. I started saying completely strange things to people. Like, oh, so we've got a table on the 12th of May, but there's going to be an erotic photo shoot going on as you're here. Is that okay? Yeah, that's absolutely fine. so the more stupid, and then I was saying, how many Instagram followers do you have? Oh, sorry, we don't have a table. Just complete utter nonsense. But people, the more I said no, the more they wanted it. Then people, local celebrities start trying to want to get in, Instagram influencers, tourists, and it just keeps on going like this, the amount of phone calls. But it's becoming a real thing. People begin applying for jobs at my non-existent restaurant. And at this point, with all the calls happening, people applying for jobs, people trying to get a table, I think, thank goodness that they don't know where I live, because these people really, really want to come into the shed. Well, thanks to the kind people at Google, anybody can now figure out exactly where I live. Thanks, Google. Cheers for that. Meanwhile, while I'm not sleeping at night, my friends and family are leaving more and more reviews. And the higher we go up the list in the rankings of restaurants in London, the more reviews they leave, because it gets funnier and funnier and funnier. And by the end of September 2017, I break into the top 200 restaurants in London. At the end of October, I'm in the top 30. And coming up towards the end of October, we dip down a little bit, and I think, oh, okay, well, at least we've done it. We broke into the top 20. And then, on the 1st of November 2017, my restaurant, that doesn't exist, gets to number 1 in the whole of London. Cheers. Yeah, and of course, the day after you get to number 1 in London, the council contacts you wanting to relocate you to an area that they're gentrifying. Of course, the day after you get to number 1 in London, production companies want to feature you in adverts to advertise our great city. Come to London, eat in a shed. Of course, the day after you get to number 1 in London, you've got results-hungry PR agencies wanting to represent you at reduced rates. I think we're doing okay. However, for me, the story had come to an end at that point. I'd come up with this thing. I wanted to see if it was even possible to get it on TripAdvisor, and it had become the most successful business that I could have imagined. So I decided, that's it, I'm done. However, the public had other ideas. I mean, put it this way, I left the phone at a friend's house on a Friday, went to pick it up a couple days later, and it had 116 missed calls on it. So I start answering the phone again. Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have a table this Friday, we're fully booked. We're fully booked, we're fully booked, we're fully booked, we're fully booked. Lie, 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 lie. And then one day, I just can't take it anymore, and I say, yeah, you can have a table this Friday. Sure, come in. And it feels absolutely amazing. And that was when it dawned on me that the real ending of this story was exactly that. I'd managed to recreate this create this reality in people's minds, this completely false thing using online technology, The real challenge now is to try and make that a reality, to try and do that in real life, to open the shed at Dulwich for one night only to real people. And how am I going to do that, you say? How am I going to turn this into London's best restaurant? Simple. I'm going to do it by telling the truth. So, all of that stuff that I promised in the reviews, the fake reviews, I'm going to make them a reality. So, for example, in the fake reviews that everyone left, they said that the food was homely. Well, I grew up eating microwavable ready meals, so I'm going to serve my customers microwavable ready meals, but dressed up to look nice and fancy, like the kind of thing you'd order in a fancy restaurant. The reviews, they mention how the shed at Dulwich has a Michelin-star quality, but with a farmyard feel. Well, see that pink house there? I'm going to empty that and fill it with chickens. And it's going to be like lobsters at a fancy restaurant. Pick your chicken. Bearing in mind, at that point, we were the #1 rated vegetarian restaurant in London too. Is it though? Is the shed at Dulwich going to have the unmistakable ambience of, a real restaurant? Yes, it definitely is, because I'm going to have a DJ playing the sound of a restaurant as people eat. So, is the success of the shed at Dulwich down to groupthink, herd behavior? Is it just the fact that everyone is saying something is great that makes people want it? Okay, maybe. So my plan for that is that half of the people in the restaurant are going to be actors who I've employed to say that everything is delicious. Okay, so with a couple of days to go, I do some last-minute preparations, extra seating, and I managed to transform this into this. You don't have to pretend that you're impressed. I know it looks like shit. But that doesn't matter, because the people are showing up. There's real customers. There's 8 real customers coming. There's a table of 2 who are locals from Dulwich who've been trying to get a table for 3 months. There's a table of 4 who are from one of London's biggest fashion agencies, who legally I'm not allowed to talk about. Then there are a table of 2 who I think are fun to focus on for this, and they are 2 newlyweds from California. The night before, they'd been eating in Paris on the banks of the Seine. Tonight, they were going to be eating microwavable meals at the shed at Dulwich. So, the night comes around, and it's difficult. There's a bunch of people eating in a damp garden in London in November. And we get to the mains. I think it's going okay. I can't quite figure it out. We bring out the mains. So our 2 Americans are sat here. I come out with my microwaved truffle mac and cheese, and I say, comfort. Put it down in front of them. Grind some truffles on top of the 99-cent mac and cheese. Say, namaste. Disappear to a part of the room where I can see them, but they can't see me. And then the lady who described herself as a foodie, this is someone who loves to take photos of food, put them on Instagram, share that kind of thing, gets out her phone as if to take a photo of the food, looks at it through the camera, and then just puts away her phone without taking a photo. Yeah. That's them. So it was morbid. It was difficult. And by the end of the night, people don't look happy to me. I'm seeing out the last customers and the table of 4, and the guy says to me, as we're walking out, Stephen, of course I was using a fake name, it's a fake restaurant. Stephen, could I have a word, please? Oh dear. Okay. Not only have I not managed to achieve what I set out to do here, but I'm probably going to get punched in the face. He says, Stephen, so about tonight, now that we've been once, is it going to be easier for us to book again next time? He tried to book again. Which is why, everybody, I believe, that today we trust more what we read online as opposed to what we put in our mouths. Thank you. That's the shed. So after I'd done the shed, I decided I wanted to do something completely different. So I moved from the world of food into the world of fashion. Do you have knockoff brands here? Knockoff copycat brands? No? Well, you know, you walk around a market and you have brands that kind of look, they're made to look like a fancy brand, but they're just a copycat. Well, I absolutely love knockoff brands. Here's some examples. Levi's, Adidas, Mike. But of all those are silly, they're ridiculous, but there's one that I love more than any of those, and it's called Giorgio Peviani. I love Giorgio Peviani, and what I love about it is it doesn't sound anything like Giorgio Armani, does it? It just sounds like a random Italian man. Sounds like a guy who makes jeans. But it's absolutely a copycat. And the funny thing is with Giorgio Peviani is that if you Google the name, there are page after page of his jeans being sold. But it's not a real guy, it's a copycat. So he's kind of, Giorgio Peviani's selling products, he's got products, but he doesn't exist. So my next idea, just from spending way too much time on markets, walking around and wearing Giorgio Peviani, was to help Giorgio Peviani reach his full potential. There's a void in the universe where this designer should be, but there's no one there. So I decided to hop into the jeans, put them on, and become Giorgio Peviani. So I took a stack of his jeans and headed to Paris Fashion Week. That was the idea. So, what do you need to become a fictitious fashion designer? You need a business card, Giorgio@giorgiopeviani.com, www.giorgiopeviani.com, market leader, which is true. He's always on the markets. I see him everywhere. So, yeah. So I decided to get some friends together and I did a high-end fashion shoot, took some photos. Here we go. So none of the clothing here is worth more than 20 euros, but looks fancy, looks nice. So I put all these together. Look, Giorgio Peviani, brand in there. I obviously had to get him one of them. Come on. I'm not a narcissist for any reason. So I put all these photos together, I collect them, put them on a website, www.giorgiopeviani.com, head to Paris Fashion Week, and immediately get there and start bullshitting. Within 3 days of being at Paris Fashion Week, I not only managed to convince some of the biggest influencers from Brazil, buyers from Milan, and local brands and celebrities that Giorgio Peviani was the hottest clothes at Paris Fashion Week. I managed to convince everybody that I was Italian. Some buyers enjoying the clothes. Brazil's biggest influencer enjoying some Peviani. So I put all this together and I came away from Paris Fashion Week at the end with a whole host of contacts, all these people wanting to stock Giorgio Peviani jeans, all of these leads. But I'd kind of answered the questions I wanted to about the fashion industry in my head. The one question that seemed the most interesting was the one that I started with. And that was, who is Giorgio Peviani? Who is this guy? Who made these jeans? Didn't just appear out of the sky. Somebody made them. So I decided to do some actual journalism for once. And I tracked him down. I tracked the guy down, and his name is Adam Asmal. He came up with Giorgio Peviani. He emigrated from Zambia to London in the 80s and came up with Giorgio Peviani in about 1995, and he's been living off him ever since. And essentially what I did is I just came to him with all of the photos I'd made, all the contacts, all of this stuff, gave it to him and just said, here you go, I've done something weird. And he didn't really know what to think until we released the video. And to date, it's been seen by 50 million people. And he's selling clothes all over the world. But it's funny because the thing that interests me about this story or this case or whatever, is I didn't do anything. I did absolutely nothing. The presentation, like the product itself was always there. It just took a dickhead like me to pick it up and run with it. But yeah, now he's selling all over the world. And yeah, I'm really happy for him. He has lots of hipsters who make the kind of, like it's lords or something. They come and take photos with him. But yeah, that's the Giorgio Peviani story. Okay, cool. Thanks. So that one was over, that story. However, the shed story didn't seem to die. It went on a world tour. Here's the Washington Post, who called me the Donald Trump of TripAdvisor. Here's me on Japanese TV. After I went on Japanese TV, there was an hour-long documentary about the shed. I trended across Japanese Twitter because they hated me so much. The shed was used to inform new laws on fake news in Singapore. Nuts. But of all these TV appearances that I was doing, I did Brazilian TV, Chinese TV, British TV a bunch of times, American TV, all these things. What kind of interested me, it didn't matter where the interviewer was from, these vastly different cultures, they were asking me the exact same questions, which I thought was kind of interesting. I just thought that these people from, there's no way that an interviewer from Japan has got the same cultural experience as an American, and yet they're asking and engaging with me in the exact same way of this story. So I found that quite interesting. But as I'm sat there doing these interviews over and over again, answering the same questions, I began to think, God, it may as well not even be me here. Would I be best to send somebody else? And then I kind of started thinking about it, and I thought, God, we're quite abstract from who we are nowadays anyway, aren't we? You have like a sexy version of yourself that you play on Instagram, like a funny version of yourself on Twitter, the business dude who's like, whatever, headshot. We have these different versions of ourselves we play online. So why can't I do that in real life? With the lines between reality and online blurring so much, it seems like a logical thing to do to me. So that was what I decided I was going to do. I was going to send fake versions of myself on TV around the world. So, here is me on Australia's biggest breakfast show in December 2017. 6 months later, in June 2018, I got asked to come on again. It was going to be the same interviewers, the same studio, but what I wanted was a better looking version of myself to go on. I wanted to, really look good, be more appealing, that's what I'd prefer. So, could I find somebody? Were they going to fall for it? The same studio, the same interviewers, the same channel. Were they going to fall for it? Surely not. Surely not. Well, there's a Peviani jeans, obviously. He was great. So the next one, another one came up, and the BBC wanted to interview me. So I said, okay, that'd be great, BBC, the last time it worked, but I'd prefer a much more charming version of myself to go on the BBC. Somebody who would just answer questions great, it would come naturally to them. So I decided to find somebody who could do that for me. So I did that, and he was amazing. He nailed it again. He was just going back and forth, had great banter with the interviewer, and I would know because I witnessed the whole thing. Because if you look in the top right-hand corner, there's me, shirtless, for no reason. So I kept on doing this. I did it about 8 times. I had Indian TV. I sent a model on Indian TV as me. He was a really good looking guy with blonde hair. And he got business opportunities in India. He was so good afterwards. I sent a guy with a PhD back on the BBC, and he had 3 follow-up interviews. I've never been asked to come back. You guys would never ask me back. So it kind of was interesting to me because not only was it funny and ridiculous that this was happening and that it was able to happen, it worked. I was outsourcing parts of my personality, and it was optimizing my brand. So I just thought, in the modern era, everybody should be able to do this. This is the future. So I decided to develop an app, right, that enables you to send somebody else to do something for you that you either don't want to do or you feel like somebody could do a better job of. And it's called Oobah. And here's a little clip about our app.
Want to impress your date? Uber.com. That DJ set becoming a train wreck? Uber.com. Designated driver had one too many. You know what to do. Uber.com. Optimize your identity.
Cheers. So that was kind of my 2018. That was what you just watched or heard about. It kind of came out of nowhere for me. 160 million people watched these documentaries that I did, which is nuts. And I was able to, I didn't leave the country. I didn't leave England until I was 16 because I'm the last of 6 kids. So we didn't have enough money to do anything like that. And now I've started to travel all over the place as this weird guy who does weird things. And the more I kind of traveled around, didn't matter if I was in Bangladesh or Stockholm or whatever, young people would come up to me and ask me advice, which felt ridiculous. But I started thinking about, what was the core reasoning behind the fact that all this stuff was able to work? Because I had to answer that question. And that was when I started thinking about what it was, and that was the fact that all of the things that I'd done in that 2018, I was not emotionally invested in any of it. Every step along the way, when I was making the shed, I was just in the moment, wholly pursuing what I was doing, but not allowing the outcome to even have any impact on me. And that was when I started looking into a Buddhist thing called non-attachment. And it's basically that, completely and wholly pursuing your goals, but without being attached to the outcome of them. So I put all this together in a book I've got coming out on April 23rd, next month, called How to Bullshit Your Way to Number One. And here's the thing. I'm going to make that a best-selling book in America. Here's the thing. I don't give a shit if it doesn't happen. I really don't. And I guess that's the thing I'm trying to think of, trying to put out there, is that the freedom of not being invested and defined by what you want to do, that freedom is what enables you to actually do something truly creative. And yeah, that's what I'm talking about in my book. And I guess I'll just leave you on this thought, which is, if somebody can make a damp, wooden, horrible shed in South London the #1 rated restaurant, if somebody can make a €20 pair of jeans the top of Paris Fashion Week, then quite literally, and I'm an idiot, anything's possible. Thank you so much. Cheers. Thanks. Wait, that's it. I'm currently working on something really crazy, by the way. The most ambitious thing I've done. It's very difficult to pull off. And I've basically looking for partners, people who want to be part of it. My email is here if anyone wants to take a photo of it. Get in contact, because I'm sick of being sat across from horrible VCs in America talking about it. So if anyone wants to be involved in that, take a photo of that and we'll talk about it. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cool. Thank you very much, Oobah Butler.
Cheers.
Really great talk. Thank you. And I can say that there's nice VCs in the Nordics, so best of luck to you. We are quite short on time, but if anyone has a burning question, we do have a roving mic. Is there anyone wants to be brave enough to ask the first question of the day?
It's 9 a.m. Come on, give them a break.
It's 10:20 now.
Oh,
time flies. But I just wanted to check, it is the real you. How can you prove to us that you're not a doppelganger here today?
Well, I did a bad job.
You did a great job.
I would never send me, would I? It'd be the cut rate me, wouldn't it?
I don't know how much they're paying you. All right, let's give a big round of applause to Oobah Butler.
Thanks
very much.
Cheers.